All right, we may or may not have had a visit from our landlord just now.
This is our take 3. We never even have like past the take 1, but I'm feeling a little bit rusty, but we're still here. Rusty is a good way to put it. When you go like 8 days without casting, it feels like it's like eternity. But
you're like, I just can't continue.
I just can't continue on. Like I just can't do it. We never even edit these things. But today I was like, no, I wanted a strong start. I feel like it's been like forever since we did one of these. It hasn't even been a week, but sometimes it feels that way. And today,
no, we did. Did we?
Yeah, we did one last Wednesday. So it's been less than a week, but it feels like an eternity.
I know, but we recorded early for Thursday.
Yeah, we did Tuesday. So it's been a week. Yeah, it's been 8 days. So it has felt like an eternity.
Yeah.
And when you do these twice a week, like it feels like forever. Like I honestly don't know how, podcasts do this like once a week or like twice a month. I'm like, I don't know how you get a rhythm. Like I'm already struggling right now. This is already like a 3 on a scale of 1 to 10.
Like, we don't even really know who we are.
Yeah, and it's like I'm lost. Like, what do we do in this podcast anyway? Which you're probably already asking that if it's your first time listening. So I apologize. Welcome aboard. This is Crushing Iron Podcast. We are episode 444. Today is January 19th. The year is 2021.
Today we're going to talk about how to manicure your lawn.
Wait,
we're
it's not that season yet. We are triathloners, I guess is what you would say. But we appreciate you tuning in. If it's your first time listening and you're still with us 35 seconds into the podcast, we do appreciate you. We have 443 backlogged podcasts that Mike has done an outstanding job outlining, and he always puts the topics in there so you can go back and listen to it in order, 1 through 444, which is today, or you can just kind of pick and choose and see what titles grab your attention, or pick the ones that you feel are relevant to what you're struggling with right now, or that might answer some of the questions that you might have in this oftentimes confusing and complicated sport. But Mike and I, as both coaches and athletes, that's what we do. We kind of open up our lives, what we're going through personally with our training and life in general, and try to open dialogue, no ads, no sponsors, no agenda. Well, yeah, we do have one agenda, keep you happy and healthy, but that's what we do. We oftentimes will just go into our Facebook group, which is Crushing Iron Group on Facebook. We'll lean on them, which we did last week for our second part of our Q&A podcast. We'll answer those questions, but we just lean on our experience, our friendship, and our athletes to kind of guide you in the positive and healthy way.
Yeah. That's what we do.
Did I bore you with that intro?
No. I just hurt my shoulder grabbing for my coffee.
Yeah, and we're also older.
I know. So, no, that was a very nice intro.
I still feel rusty.
I do too, but like we had a couple of hub visits this morning.
I think that's why I feel rusty. Is I feel like
we were one-on-one.
Yeah, I feel like I may have overcooked it this morning.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, I did some analysis this morning from an athlete that came in from Nashville, and then you did one with Casey, who drove in from Atlanta. I do have to say, like, that's actually where I wanted to go with today's podcast, which I probably need to go ahead and start now before I lose every listener possible. Because basically, I think I had this question the other day. I think it was, last week on our questions we had, what's your least favorite podcast? You know what the answer is? Right now.
This one
right now is my least favorite podcast you've ever done. I feel like I'm doing a horrific job of getting my shit together. But I'm going to get it together here and now, because today, you know what I want to talk about?
What?
Swimming.
Oh, okay. All right.
You didn't want to go there?
No. Yeah, I do. I think it's time. We talked about it last time.
We did. We went into it, and we had a lot of swim questions, and we've had a lot of athletes that are getting back in the water, that are getting ready for, hopefully, which is going to be a busy year. You've been out of the water for a while, or your time is limited, and there's always a lot of questions surrounding swimming. It is easily my favorite of the three. It's what my background is in, and is one we get the most questions about. And having an endless pool here at the hub, it's the one we get the most interest in terms of athletes coming in and traveling from all over to get time in the pool. And I'm reminded, honestly, every single session that we do with an athlete, because again, swimming it's not as complicated as you might think. I always tend to say, like, hey, swimming is a lot more simple than you think it is. And I'm always reminded every single time we do a swim session, we look at an athlete, we look at their strokes, or anytime we talk to an athlete online or email that we work with, is that there's so much information out there. There's so many ways that people are taught. There are so many ways that people learn. There are so many kind of habits and things people pick up as they progress in swimming, and then how easy it is to kind of fall back into the pattern of being comfortable. And that was the conversation I had this morning with Dana, who came in. I think as a lifelong swimmer, it's something that I tend to forget sometimes, but with athletes, she had a previous coach, and I just say, tell me about we just started working together. And I said, tell me about, your previous training structure and how that looked. And she was like, I just swam. I was like, oh, you just swam? She's like, yeah, I just kind of got in the water and just kind of click. I just kind of punched the clock and just kind of get my time in and get my yardage in. And I was like, really? She's like, yeah.
And you love that.
Yeah, of course, that's my favorite thing, right? It's like, oh, I just swam, completed his plan, 2,000-yard swim, easy, I did it. No, it's one of my least favorite things to do ever. But I asked her why, and she said, well, I just got really frustrated that I was paying such close attention to the workouts and I was trying my hardest, but I just wasn't getting any faster. And so instead of being frustrated with trying to work hard and get better, I just decided that I would just, she didn't say not care, but basically that's what she was saying when she said, I just decided to just check the box, which is so common with swimming because it is such a technique driven sport that athletes pick it up later on in life. And I tell this, I think I've mentioned this on a couple of podcasts ago, is if I didn't pick up swimming at a very, very young age, but I don't know that I would do triathlon because it is such a hard sport to pick up because it is so technique driven. You can make one or two small changes in your stroke and it can transform you. However, it's just like, I think I used this analogy the other day. It's like if you pick it up later, it's like trying to learn a new language. It's like, hey, you want to learn French? No, I don't. I don't want to learn French. Like, would I love to be able to speak French? Sure. Do I want to actually try to learn that at 40? Absolutely not. And that's kind of what swimming is. And you kind of just athletes get frustrated because they're not getting any faster. I think it's the hardest one to get better at because it's so technique driven, but also because the amount of time it takes you to actually get to the pool and see the improvement. And now, especially for the last, it's unfortunate, like the last year, for a lot of people, pool time has been so limited or non-existent that a lot of athletes have stalled or just kind of regressed because they haven't had the opportunity to swim more. And so it's about balancing time. And then you may only get to the pool maybe once, twice a week. You're not going to see a ton of improvement, especially if you're just kind of getting in and just swimming the yardage. You're basically just practicing swimming the same pace, which is what a lot of athletes do in the pool. And then also the other part of it is that so many triathletes, I think, have been conditioned to think that just the swim just doesn't matter. It's the shortest of the three. It doesn't really matter. You don't have to take it that seriously. Just get ready for the bike. Just crush the bike. Just get ready to crush the bike. And then when they get, and this athlete gave this example as well. I said, what do you usually swim in the pool? And she said, I usually swim about mid 150s always. And I said, has that translated well to open water? And she said, no. I did a river swim, then I had 2 ocean swims in the Pacific. And I was like, yeah, that's not going to translate well. Like it's a totally different sport, but it can be ignored. It's kind of the third on the list. It's most athletes' least favorite, which again, like that allows athletes to kind of just take like a very stale approach to their training because they don't feel like they're getting any faster. They don't feel like they know how to get faster. They don't feel like it's that important, and they feel like it's kind of something they can just kind of gloss over and stay lazy with and just kind of get by. And we've talked about so many of the How to Not Suck at Swimming series. I think we have maybe 5 or 6 now. Mm-hmm. In that, everything is Ironman racing, especially, and even at the 70.3 distance, it's all about energy expenditure. And if you blow your load and you burn your biscuits and you strike your match in the swim, you're going to have a hard time keeping up pace and keeping up power for the remainder of the day. So today, if I could, especially since I seem to not have my act together today in terms of the podcast, I got to go back to my true love, which is swimming. And I think that might help me get me out of my funk.
Well, it's kind of an interesting place because if you're in a funk, but you also want to take over the podcast where I can just sit back and listen.
Is that what you want?
I don't know if I'm trying to get the balance here because I'm a little fired up.
You're fired up?
Spent the morning with a great guy. We had a lot of awesome discussions about triathlon and getting better, and we did spend a lot of time in the pool. I don't know if this will be a How to Not Suck at Swimming episode yet. Nah. It's going to have to really pick up steam.
Yeah, I know it is. We're going to have to pick up, throw a little gasoline on there.
It's not worthy at this point. How did you want to go about this? Because I wasn't going to and you probably will hate this question, but maybe not. I was going to throw something out to get kind of the ball rolling here regarding swimming.
Go for it, because right now I'm like blindfolded 3 times swinging at a pinata. So go ahead, man, just let it rip. Something's gonna light a fire underneath me right now. It's not a match or gasoline.
Actually, I'm since I was so close to really doing that swim analysis, and there's a few things on my mind, but one of them that has popped up, and it pops up quite a bit. And we had talked about years ago about, if you're having trouble swimming, throw a pull buoy between your legs and then call us in a couple months or whatever that was. And just swim, which I am totally on board with. But there's always this thing, right? Like, it's how do I, because when you get too used to a pull buoy, and I think this is a big question for a lot of people, that's why I'm bringing it up, is that they get to the point where they take it out, and then all of a sudden it seems a lot harder. So, do you have theories on how to, like, mix and match with that? Or is it like at some point it's like go swim and just swim a lot, and then at some point we got to like, okay, we got to go back to the not using it, and then is it because we get lazy?
You said it.
Okay.
I mean, that was the first thing I thought of when you asked the question, was that, I think, so when we prescribe or suggest or encourage athletes to just go strictly to a pull buoy, it's not to make them lazy. And I think that's also kind of the misconception, and this is probably our fault from phrasing things like, it's like run slow to get fast. It's not about running slower. It's about running easier so you can run easier more often, so you can run more often, so then you can get faster, right?
Exactly,
it's not about just being slow. That's not being slow to get fast. It's about allowing yourself to run more by running easier, so you're accumulating more mileage, so you're building a more durable body and establishing a better aerobic system. Therefore, you will run faster. So, when I say put a pull buoy in between your legs and call me back in a few months, yes, will it work? Sure. But one thing that I think athletes need to understand is that it's not meant to just let you forget it's there for a purpose, right? It's like, it's there because listen, most athletes, not only do they kick wrong, like they kick from their knees, right? They just don't kick right, period. It actually, like, there are many athletes that I've just told don't kick, period, at all, ever again, and they automatically get faster because the herky-jerky motion of their kick is so out of whack and it's so sideways and so inefficient, it actually slows them down, right? And so if you remove that, and then you also remove and this is a conversation I had this morning, is that, and I get this, I know I kind of give total immersion a hard time, which I think is fair, but allowing athletes and adults or anyone really to get into swimming, it's hard to do in the water. It's not like we're riding our bike or running where we can just walk and catch our breath or coast and catch our breath. Our face is in the water. It is a uncomfortable experience. So if you want someone to do something more, you have to make it seem almost easy and comfortable for them to want to be able to swim more, right? So you have to cross that bridge, and I get it. You have to cross that bridge with athletes to make them feel like it's easier and more comfortable. Does it also make you a lot slower? In my opinion, yes, but it does get you comfortable in the water. Now, having said that, the negative or the drawback from that is that it also kind of imprints really poor habits, very slow arm movement, very cautious, careful, delicate swimming, if you will, which might work okay at a slow, easy, moderate pace in the pool, but then you get tossed in the Pacific or the Gulf or, with 3,000 other people, and it's not really going to work out very well for you. So when I say shove a pull buoy into your legs, it's really to do a few things. One is to eliminate your biggest distraction for people, which for most of them is their kick. Like, what do I do with my legs? Or I got to have it for body positioning. No, you don't. Okay. You don't have to have a huge kick for body positioning. You actually can control it with your core. But also, we don't want you to feel out of breath, because if you feel out of breath, you're going to get anxious. You're going to feel like you're rushing. So take away the largest muscle groups that you have, which are your legs, your quads, your hamstrings, your calves, and let's just remove that piece. Let's limit all the sensory overload things you have going on right now, which you're trying to correct. Right? I got to enter here. I got to catch my arm here. I got to pull here. Then I got to drag my elbow out. I got to kick too, and I got to kick this way, not from my hips or not from my knees or from my hips. I got to point my toe, and I got to other arm too. And it's like there's so many things about. So what you want to do is we want to limit the amount of things you have to think about at once, because there's only so much you can do at one time and perfect it. A lot of people, and this is true for all things in life, you try to do too many things at one time, and you actually end up doing absolutely none of it very well. Like, I made this decision yesterday. I woke up, Hayden's school was just like shut down abruptly in the middle of last week because one of their teachers tested positive for COVID. So he was back home, and we didn't know when he was going to go back to school. Was probably going to be today, which he ended up going, but who knows? He's out of school for Martin Luther King Day. And Monday mornings are, as you know, for both of us, very crazy. You're catching up on stuff from the weekends. It's our busiest day period. And he's at home. And so my first thought that morning was, as I was typing up our weekly email, was like, today is going to be absolutely horrid. I'm going to have to try and do my best job as a coach. I'm going to have to do my best job as a father and manage Hayden. And I was like, and I literally typed my entire email, and my whole plan was to just do the best I could to just tread water all day. And then right before I hit send, I decided, you know what? maybe I'll just do one thing really, really good today, and I'll just see what I can do the rest of the week and do the best I can. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to take the day off from work and spend the entire day with Hayden and do whatever he wants to and have a lot of good time. So at least I know I can be really, really great at the one thing that I have to do today. Because if I'd have like, oh, I'll do great at work today. Well, I wouldn't, because I'm managing a 4-year-old who wants to like do something 24/7. Right. So instead of trying to do quite a few things at once and just kind of get them done or be okay at it, I decided, okay, I'll just trim the fat and do one thing really, really well. So I decided to spend the whole day, and we had an awesome day. That's the same thing with swimming. You have to focus on 1 or 2 things max at a time in order to get better. So the pull buoy is to minimize all the extra noise. So you can really focus on the things that matter, which is your stroke. It is your mechanics. It's where you enter. It's how early and vertical your forearm gets. It's where you pop your elbow. It's how you finish. It's, where you push water. Do you push it out? Do you push it underneath you? It's all those things. It's about turnover. So, and you can focus on that with your arms, but it's not about being lazy, right? It's not about, oh, well, now I've got a crutch. Because a lot of people say, oh, well, pull buoy is a tool. It's a crutch. It'll make you too reliant on. Well, yes, if you're become lazy and you're not thinking about the reason on why you're using it, which is to limit the noise and limit the chaos and limit distraction, so you can actually focus and work on it. Because if you're swimming with the pull buoy and you're not focusing on still swimming high, if you're not still focusing on engaging your core, then you're right. You're not going to get any better. You're just doing this. You're just doing the same things over and over and over again, but just with the pull buoy in your legs. The point is to focus and allow your body to do it more. Plus, a lot of athletes will tell you, I love swimming with the pull buoy. It makes me feel faster. Okay, which is also going to turn into, okay, maybe I'll swim more, which is also going to turn into getting you faster, which is also going to make you turn into I actually enjoy this. Like, I'm getting faster. I can see results. So it's kind of like, you're bridging appeasing the athlete with allowing them to swim more often, and actually enjoy it and see progress. Because if you see progress in pretty much anything, you're like, I like this. I like seeing progress. But if you don't, you feel like you're regressing or you're staying stagnant, then no, you in fact don't want to do it. So it's not about being lazy. It's about repetition, and it's about fine-tuning the aspects in swimming, like, reaching for the corners or swimming in a rectangle, like all the things that should be simplistic, but it can be so overcomplicated, not just because it is such technique-driven, there's so much information out there, but also because you're in water, you're moving, and it's such a fluid, literally fluid situation that it's hard to feel like you're doing everything right at one time, so you end up doing nothing right the entire time. I'm on a roll, baby. Let's go. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
I'm back.
You are.
Just to put them back in the water.
How to not suck it?
No, don't title that. It's still not worthy. It's still not worthy.
Okay, so like one of the things you said there is with this idea of, okay, well, maybe it helps because a lot of our cores are kind of weak, but so that's the point, right? Is I notice I swim with it a lot, and I just know when I start getting stronger throughout, and it's usually a progression, and it's with everybody, but I kind of lose it after my race, and then I start coming back. And towards the race, when I'm throwing down, fairly big swims with a lot of sprints and hard work in there, I can tell that, my core is just getting stronger, and that pull buoy, even though I'm using it, I am focused. That's such a hard thing to do. But it's almost like you have to put it in. If you're using it, act like you don't have it, kind of thing.
That's perfectly said. You should, and this is what I tell athletes that when I start working on them in this pull, I said this morning, I said, we're putting the pull buoy in between your legs, not so you can just disengage and not focus, but it's so we can forget about your legs and actually focus on your torso. So, because that's the one thing that athletes, I think most athletes would be shocked at how important your hips and your core is to swimming efficiently and staying high in the water. Like you can 100% control your body positioning with your core, with your obliques, and honestly your technique, because if you have an early vertical forearm, you're actually going to have a better chance of being high in the water. But you can control your entire body without kicking at all, period. It's not like, oh, well, you have to kick to balance. No, you don't. You can control that by lengthening out your core and feeling that reach. And it's all connected. It all starts at the front end. Like, that's something that 2 weekends ago when we had the 3 athletes in from Milwaukee, I ended up getting in the pool, and I was like, this is what I need you to see in terms of, what it's like to feel like you're lengthening your side, like your obliques, all the way down from basically connecting your lats all the way down to your hip. Like, that's how you want to feel like you're lengthening out yourself. And I think Jerry Rodriguez at Tower Twins, he'll call it tautness. Like, you want to be really taut. Well, I like to call it lengthening, because if you can lengthen out something, then in my opinion, it has less chance of bending, right? That's how most athletes end up looking in the water. They end up bending at the hips. Their legs bend down. They almost swim like a shape of an L, right? Their legs are just dragging the bottom. They can't do it. You should be able to, with fairly good confidence and strength, at least do a 25. It'll be hard with a band around your ankles and still be pretty high in the water. You can control that with your hips. That's another kind of progression that I'll use with athletes once I feel like they've gotten the strength. A great way to control athletes' hips from not making them wiggle is to put a pull buoy and a band, because it actually makes you, because you don't have so much wiggle because the band keeps your feet facing the bottom, so it keeps your legs facing the bottom, which also keeps your hips kind of pointed down. It allows you to kind of just focus on even more so on your hips and your obliques and your sides, so you can lengthen it. And the best way I can describe it is I told an athlete, all right, keep your heels on the ground, your feet totally planted, nothing can come up. Then I want you to reach as high as you can, your arm up like you're trying to grab a cookie at the top of a fridge. Oh, I can't reach it. Okay, well, are you going to be done reaching it? No. What you are going to do is you're going to extend your lats all the way as far as you possibly can. And when you do that, you can feel it go down the side. You can feel it from your lats going all the way down to almost your hip. And if you can lengthen that, not only are you going to have a bigger reach and you're probably going to get up and over into your early vertical forearm quicker, but if you're reaching and your hips come up, if your hips come up, your butt comes up. If your butt comes up, your legs come up. And that's what you want. You want the least amount of you in the water. Swimming is so similar to cycling. I think we've used this analogy before in that, it's not aerodynamics, it's hydrodynamics. It's all about the least amount of you in the water, okay, right? With the most amount of water that you're pushing backwards. That's another thing that we talk about all the time with swimming is that, when you're put in a pool and it's this very still and very calm and almost very inviting body of water, you're thought, oh, I can just kind of cruise through and do a few really soft and gentle strokes to get to the other end with very minimal hard work, and I'm not very out of breath. I've got my own lane, and nobody's splashing, and everything is controlled and the water's clear. This is great. Well, in open water swimming in any kind of triathlon ever, unless you're swimming Cozumel, you can actually see the bottom. It's like it's all about power. It's about upper body. It's about strength. And you have to think about water as a means of getting to where you want to go. You want to grab that water and shove it backwards, because the more water you shove backwards, the more of you goes forwards. But so many athletes, even if they have a really, really great stroke, or they know the mechanics to do, even if your mechanics are sound, even if they are perfect, if your body is fading and falling and sinking in the back, where you're aiming isn't going to be where you're hitting, if that makes sense, because you're going to be you're sinking ship, right? It's like you can picture it now, like if I want to have this front end stroke, but if your bottom is sinking, then you're going to enter a different place, you're going to start your pull at a different space, and it's not going to be pulling water backwards, it's probably going to be pushing water down. So no, like there's so much to be said, and I think people hear the term hip-driven freestyle or shoulder-driven freestyle. Like I always tend to veer towards like athletes really encouraging them to drive with their hips, which I think is also a kind of a difficult concept to understand. It's like, what do you mean drive with my hips? Like, do you mean like wiggle? No, I don't mean wiggle. Like I don't mean like turn side to side. Like that's another thing athletes think, oh, I want, you got to rotate your hips and you got to turn. Why? Why do you have to rotate your hips so much in swimming? It's not like you have a sailboat that you got to go back and forth, and you need it to breathe because you breathe from your mouth. You don't breathe from your trachea or your collarbone, which most athletes do when they like roll side to side. When they roll all the way over and they breathe their whole head out of the water, you can hip drive and you can hip drive forward, which is, I know it's a hard concept, but the reason I'm not a huge fan of the shoulder drive or the shoulder lengthen, I think is what people say, is because people tend to overreach. They tend to glide, they tend to enter the water, and then they basically extend their arm as far as they possibly can in the water. And if you do that, and I use this breakdown of the pool, as I have an athlete basically press down on my hand with their arm just kind of like normal out, and they can basically press my hand down very easily. And then if I told them to extend their hand and their lats as far as they can forward, then I ask them to press down, they can't do it. They lose all leverage. And that's what I think shoulder drive does to a lot of athletes, is it actually confuses them and actually makes them lengthen out their stroke so long to where they can't restrict it and gain that power.
So optimum reach.
Yes, exactly. Reach into your pull, not overextending and pausing and stopping and gliding. That's not what we want. You don't want to glide. No one glides.
And I think too, like, and it's always a great reminder to hear the drive from the hips, because that, to me, like when you drive from the hips, you're I think countering gravity a little bit. You know what I mean? Like it's sort of like you're extending yourself out with force versus stalling. and your legs will naturally stay higher, that sort of thing. And because let's face it, man, I mean, like the any kind of dead spots, it's going to be, that's gravity right there. Like if you're always moving forward, it's going to be harder to sink. And I think that's what's so beautiful about what you just said, as far as from the hip, is that instead of overreaching and because I think that would have a tendency to at least create weak spots versus dead spots. If you have like a strong stroke all the way through that's always catching water, it's always doing something, versus just trying to reach out as far as you can, and then all of a sudden you're trying to like pull yourself up a wall with your fingertips or something like that. You know what I mean? Versus like really having a good grip on it.
And you want to be in continuous motion, and then that's what like pausing and reaching does, is it causes people to stop and have these dead spots. Yes. Is it really easy to be in a pool and just glide and then do the kick on your side drill, and like what is that doing at all? Period. What is that helping anyone do besides gliding and then having to start all over with their stroke? That's not something that's applicable to being in open water. It's just not. Like, you don't see anyone when you watch any races on YouTube or on Ironman Live or whatever it is, like, you don't see anyone gliding, okay? No one glides. The point is to get from point A to point B the fastest. This isn't to pause and reach and glide and kick on our side and take a breath. No, the point is to get from point A to point B the absolute quickest. So you said it in terms of like the faster your turnover, the larger your reach, and then using your hips, it brings your butt up. Like if you think about standing on the end of a diving board, I don't want you to do a front flip. You're going to think, all right, I'm going to throw my hands over, and then I'm going to throw my hips over. That's going to get my legs up and over. And that's the same thing. You and I use the same analogy in terms of like reaching over the barrel. The pool is like, you want to reach so far in front of you, not gliding once you get in the water, but before your hand hits the surface of the water to get down, you want to reach as absolutely as far as you possibly can. Because if you're reaching that far, then your hips are going to come with it. And if your hips come with it, your butt comes with it. Your butt comes with it. Your legs come with it. That brings everything up and over. And not only does it bring your legs, but it's bringing your arms up and over, so it makes it so much easier to get that early vertical forearm, because now your momentum is up and over into that catch. It's not stalling, basically having to start all the way over while your legs sink in the back.
So I like that analogy of the barrel, and tell me if I'm right. It's versus like, let's say it was a box. To get up and over like the top of a box would be a whole different animal. Yep. But like a barrel is kind of rounded, so you're actually kind of going down into the, you're going up and over and down and getting maybe a high elbow catch earlier with that sort of mentality in your brain. Like versus
you're exactly right.
Straight out and then kind of go like this, and like that whole perfect square kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a great point, I think a great visual, because I was again talking about this earlier, and we use it all the time, is like, that's also why I'm a huge fan of the stroke maker paddles that we always suggest, and using the ones that are actually appropriate size, not ones that are like 6 times too big like most people do.
The company that didn't want to sponsor us.
Yeah, they didn't. They actually, like, our first 3 pockets were like, we don't agree with what you're saying about our paddles. So I was like, all right, well, in that case, screw you, because I said remove the wrist cord, but having that paddle hit your wrist where it does, it actually kind of makes your hand kind of tilt into the water. And if you have that kind of a tilt to your wrist, like a break of the wrist entering the water, it kind of pops your elbow up. And what you want, and I used to be an assistant tennis pro back when I was in college, and I could always tell when they hit the ball, but if it was going to go in or out, just by their backswing, by their stroke, by their footwork. I could tell if it was, I would immediately say, great shot, because I knew it was going to go in. I can tell the exact same thing, and I could tell this earlier, when Dana had her arms perfectly positioned entering the water, I knew it was going to be a good stroke. And it was, because we had her doing, and the same thing was happening the 2 weekends prior with the other athletes that we had in town, was that if you have this like slight break in your wrist, if you're just like standing, you're standing up, you're listening to this podcast, you're thinking, how did I even make it this far? Because the first 15 minutes were terrible. Is if you're standing in front of you, put your arms in front of you like, freaking Frankenstein, and you bend your wrist and you kind of break it to where your hand stays flat and kind of flexed, bends it down, your elbow pops up a little bit. But what you always want to, if you can enter the water with your shoulder over your elbow, over your wrist with your hand, you have already kind of created what you were talking about with the barrel. You've already kind of created a silhouette of like half the barrel. So you're already kind of in the position to cup and grab water, which you want to do anyway. So if you already have that position when you enter the water, if you just keep moving forward, you're going to already kind of end up in that catch phase as your body kind of moves with it, and then you just kind of move underneath it. But that's all how you enter the water. A lot of athletes, again, have such poor body positioning that sometimes their back end drags them down so much that their elbow hits the water first, right? So if your elbow hits the water first and you drop it, now you've got a kind of a V. You've got your shoulder and your elbows below it, and then your wrist. There's no way to create leverage with that. So what you have to do is drop your hand, so you're wasting time. There's no work being done. You're just dropping your hand down. Then I've got to try and get an early vertical forearm when what I've done is missed the huge opportunity, which is that first kind of third of your stroke, and you got your first third, your middle third, and your back third. You've missed it all. And then the chance of you actually getting your elbow back up higher to where it needs to be are like slim to none. Like, you really want to try and focus, in my opinion, on keeping your elbow as close to the surface of the water as possible. Now, are you going to keep it there? No. Are you going to get close to it? Maybe. That's the point, is to get as close as you can, because if you can keep your elbow as close as you can to the surface, then it forces you to do just the movement with your forearm, is and basically move your forearm on that plane below it. But most people actually drop their elbow. That's why people who, especially guys, they get like, oh, I'll take the size 5.0 paddle. Like, no, you don't need a size. You need like a size 0, like, or maybe even like a negative 0.5, because it's about strength. So they end up dropping their elbow and just kind of smoothing and moving their arms backwards, because so many athletes have been taught, again, I get it, it should feel easy. I just want to move through the water. My arms should feel easy. No, if your arms feel really easy, like they're not grabbing anything, then yeah, you're not grabbing anything and you're not pushing any water backwards. Therefore, you're probably going pretty slow. You want to feel like you want to feel stronger. You want to feel like you're grabbing water. You should feel the pressure against the water, because if you can feel more pressure against your water, or against your arms, your forearms, or what you call your paddle on your hands, if you can feel that and push it backwards, then that resistance is what makes you go forward. It's kind of like if I said, hey, I want you to stand up. I want you to push against this wall. The wall's not going to move, right? But I want you to shove off the wall. You'd shove off pretty good and you'd fall back a little bit. But if I said, all right, shove off the wall, and the wall's going to be moving in the opposite direction, you wouldn't get as much of a pushback, right? Mm-hmm. The same thing with finding water underneath you. If you're a person who does the catch underneath you, or which is, most athletes do that because it's easy water, right? It's going with you. But if you keep it out wide and grab the firm water, you have something firmer to put. We all want to push against something that's firm, right? That we can get the most force behind, back against us. We don't want to move. We don't push back against something that's already moving backwards, right? Because it's going to make things hard. We're not going to get as much. I'm sure there's a physics term for that. We're not going to get as much pushback. That's the same thing with swimming, and how wide you want to stay there. And that's why I always tell athletes, like, picture yourself on a surfboard or a paddleboard, whatever. Like, that's the easiest way to describe it, is like pretend that you're on a rectangular surfboard, reach for the corners, which are the top two, corners of the rectangle, and then keep your arms that wide and keep them that way to the entire finish. And if you can do that, I guarantee you'll be a faster. Oh, well, coach, it feels hard. Yeah, I know. It feels hard because you're working harder. Yeah. And if you're working harder, you're probably going faster. Now we just have to condition your body and your lats and your deltoids and your arms in general to be able to hold that for a longer period of time. It's not that that's just too hard. Yeah, well, so are your intervals on the bike. And it was like, coach, I don't know, man. That bike, that was just too hard. I think I'm going to go back. No, you don't. You want to get stronger and faster. You do harder, stronger, faster things.
It's funny. Yeah, we had that with Casey this morning. I had an exact, perfect example of that. He was swimming and he was wide and nice and strong with his right arm, and his left arm is weaker. So what was happening was he was coming in front of him and pulling underneath with his left arm, and he was pulling outside with his right arm. And we had talked about that. He always has trouble swimming straight, for one. So that was exactly what we talked about, right? And I said, exactly, because you're more efficient with your right side, and your left hand isn't doing as much work. So naturally, you're gonna tug that way or pull that way. So then he started reaching out far as he could left, and he was getting that still water. And he said his left side got fatigued pretty fast. And that's what happens is one side is usually weaker than the other, and we find ourselves catering to that with as easy momentum as we can. So anyway, on that, I did have, I had another thought here, a question, because it came up, what you just said, you were talking about stroke rate. And I think this is another one that people want to talk about. Now, that you said faster stroke rate keeps you up more. And I agree with that. Sometimes I get careful with that, because that doesn't mean just absolutely flailing and spazzing. It's just a little bit faster, maybe a little bit more pickup. But it's really, isn't it more or just as much, if not more, about the efficiency of what's going on there? Because your stroke rate, it doesn't feel like uber fast to me.
Yeah, can I tell you something?
What?
We've been in the hub since July or August or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know that I like all this new intelligence that you have about swimming and like critiquing people. You put me in the spot. I'm not sure if I like it or not. No, you're 100% correct. And this is like, and yes, should you have a faster turnover if it's a problem? 100%. However, just like you said, again, going back to a cycling analogy, we've all been out there. We're riding with a bunch of friends we know, and somebody came out there with their bike, and it's the first time doing it, and they don't know how to shift gears, and we're cruising along in the flats, or even a slight uphill, and you look over your neck, and you see the bouncing around. He's just bouncing like a million miles. You're like, dude, why are you spinning out? So why are you spinning at 120K? And it's like you could probably drop it down a few gears and go 80, 85, and be cruising easier, and using less energy and going faster and feeling better. And they're like, oh, that's good. And they drop it on 3 gears, like, oh, this feels better. That is swimming as well. Like you said it perfectly. And again, I'm not sure I like this part, but is that it is. And I think this is, and we've both been saying this in this pool recently, is like when someone sees, and this is something that I when I have somebody get in and I crank and I put them in the water first, just swim for 5 or 10 minutes, you can see the clock. Like you can see the pace that they're going. It's fun to watch athletes, and I think how we've been conditioned, I think too, like in life, is that in order to go faster and do more, you have to go faster and do more. And so when they see the clock kind of getting faster from 150s, 145 to 140, everyone thinks, oh, in order to go faster, I should have to move my arms faster. But what oftentimes it happens, and I read this comment once a week in Training Peaks, Coach, you told me to go fast, and I went slower. Okay. That is 100% a great thing to know, because it is wrong. Obviously, that's not the point. But the point is for you to understand that going faster doesn't necessarily mean moving your arms faster. If you are cutting out the back of your stroke, if you are negating the full stroke that you have, you should feel like swimming stronger. If you see the pace picking up or the current is getting harder, you shouldn't think about, all right, I need to move my arms a lot quicker. You should think of, I need to make the most out of every stroke that I have. You should almost focus on not making it slower, but just making even like that much more intentional and that much more purposeful in the water. That was one of the things that when I ended up getting in the water with these athletes, I gave the remote away, and I said, just start me at like a 140s and then just kind of click me down. I'm not going to look at it. I'm just going to feel it. And my stroke rate almost didn't change at all from like 140 to like 115, 120. I could feel it getting faster, but my focus wasn't on picking up my stroke rate and making it go faster, because my focus was on, okay, reach farther, finish farther back, because I'm gaining more water. If I'm gaining more water to grab, I'm actually going faster. That's the point. And so you bring up a great point. It's not just about flailing and being out of control. And I'll say this too. I'm like, yes, you want a faster stroke rate if you need it, because you don't want it to be a slower thing to do, but you also don't want to be in a hurry. Don't be in a hurry. Be purposeful with what you're doing. Be intentional. Be strong. I would rather any athlete, and I've tried to reword a lot of the workouts that I have as well. Instead of saying swim fast, and I do sometimes just say fast because I want to see what they can do when trying to swim fast. But a lot of times I'll just say I'd swim 90% strong, because most athletes will say, if I can swim 90% effort and feel strong, you're going to be faster with better times than if I said just go as fast as you can. Because when you say that, your immediate thought is, I just have to move my arms faster. No, because you're in fact probably going to make yourself slower.
Yeah. It's so funny. I mean, that's what we were talking about today. And I was trying to understand it, how, like you're saying, because I've been doing those types of workouts too in the endless pool, where I'll be at, let's say 150, and I'll find a stroke rate or an effort rate or whatever you want to call it. And then I'll just keep lower or up in the speed and going maybe down to 130s, for example. And my whole focus has been to keep on the same turnover, stroke rate. But what does that mean? That doesn't seem to make sense. But what you said is that like you're just recruiting more muscles. You're being more efficient with it. You're grabbing more water. The stroke is, because you just going at the same pace. And I was talking, it was funny because we were on the treadmill after that, and I was doing the same thing with him. I just had it going, I had him running at a comfortable pace, and I counted his turnover, and then I said, all right, I want you to keep your turnover right here while I speed this up. So it was kind of a similar thing, and he was like staying more relaxed with it, but he was going faster, but his turnover didn't change.
Yeah,
I don't know what that is on a scientific.
No, it's all about energy and return on investment, right? It's about, and that's the same. It's through all endurance sports. It's all about your return on investment, the energy, and it's output, and input, and how those balance out. And when you're swimming, and again, I think it's also a great, not a test really, but a great skill to have and a great kind of experiment to do for yourself in that. And I'll do this occasionally when I'm swimming a lot, is I'll do all right, I want to swim it because everybody says, oh, it's all about distance per stroke. And people think, oh, that means gliding. It means getting the end of the pool in 9 strokes. No, it doesn't. That just means you're getting there slowly. No, you don't get points for using. What's your SWAF score? I have no idea. It's all about how quickly and efficiently you can get there. However, if I say, hey, I want you to swim at a 7, I want you to swim at this effort, long and strong strokes, and the RPE for you is a 6. So scale 1 to 10, the RPE is 6. So effort level is a 6. Now, the longest strong stroke, get there. And your pace is a 130. Awesome. Now, if I said, all right, pick up the pace, and it gets you up to an 8 or a 9, and you only go from a 130 to a 127, not worth it when it comes to how you would race on race day, because you're going to gain, I don't know, maybe a minute, maybe. And that's if you can swim perfectly straight, because if you can't swim perfectly straight, you're just going to get more off course, right? So you're actually losing time. And so that's the point, is to come out of the water as fresh as you possibly can, while also going as fast. It's about fast and fresh. As long as you can get out of the water as fast as you can, but also being super fresh, that is the point of the game. So even if you find yourself, swimming consistently a 145, but that 145 leaves you gassed, if you train right and you if you get better and you get more efficient and you get stronger, even if you stay at a 145 pace, but your effort level went from an 8 or 9 down to a 5, winning, okay? 100% winning, because you're being more efficient. You're going to get out of the water and be able to actually bike and run the way that you've been training. You're not going to be so at an energy deficit, which is what so many athletes find themselves being when they get out the swim. They're like, it was just a 2.4 mile swim. Oh, just a 1.2 mile swim. And they come out of the water, we both sat there, and it's one of my favorite places to be, which is, that's what makes it. You see people coming out of the water, and again, on the shortest, easiest, most inconsequential part of the race, looking like they have been put through the ringer. They look like they are toast coming out of the water, and you're thinking, how are you not feeling discouraged, being so behind the 8 ball already with your energy? You're torched. It's because they haven't conditioned their body to do so. So yes, it's so much about return on investment. It's about knowing the strokes that you need to have. And again, it's not about being in a hurry, because most people, again, they just start spinning their gears to go nowhere, right? And so if you think about it, it's I'd rather just do, to make another cycle analogy, if I'm trying to push 100, it's all about finding it's the same thing with cycling. It's all about finding the appropriate, most efficient, effective cadence for you. Is it 120, spinning out, grabbing nothing, feeling nothing, just kind of, making yourself out of breath but not going anywhere and pushing very low power? Or is it, going 45 cadence where you're just grinding away to kind of get close to the power, but just torching your legs and your heart rate's not going anywhere? Or is it kind of somewhere in the middle, which is your race pace? It's 80, 85 for me, or I feel like I'm efficient. I don't feel like I'm out of breath. I feel like I'm in control. Swimming is the exact same way. But again, most athletes don't have more than one gear. They definitely don't have more than one stroke. So it's about trying to find working so you can have more gears
and understanding the gears.
And understanding the gears too. It's and again, that's why it's so hard. People just give up, right? They just give up. They're like, screw it. I'm just going to get through it and I'll make up my time, on the bike, or I'll make up my time. There's no such thing as making up time, right? There's you can't do that. You just are what you are at that moment in time. You can't, you just won't be as fast at the end of the day because you didn't swim as fast. You can't make up time. That's not really how it works. So, you have to be able to swim enough and be engaged enough to see the improvements, to see the results, where you can have different paces, different efforts, which again that's the greatest selling point. That's why it's hard, right? That's why swimming is difficult, but that's also why it's so wonderful, because you can't get on the bike and be like, dude, I changed this one little thing about how I flex my ankle, picked up 25 watts. Like you can't do that, right?
Yeah.
That's not, or you can't be like, all right, coach, I figured out that if I actually change my cadence from from 175 per minute to 166, I'm 45 seconds, faster per mile. No, you're not going to do that. However, in swimming, if you said, all right, change this and this, it's a technique thing. It's not an effort thing. It's not an anaerobic thing. It's not a muscular thing. I'm not asking more of your lungs, but just this small technical fix. And you can take 15 seconds off your 100-yard pace. And now you're gaining minutes on 70.3 minutes, sometimes 5 to 10 minutes on an Ironman swim. That's like the blessing and the curse of swimming is it is so technical. However, if you focus on enough and you do the right things, a small tweak can be a major change.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, speaking of technique, I thought of an analogy because this exact discussion has been on my mind, that whole idea of how do you kind of, basically keep the same technique or turnover and go faster. And I was thinking about like a weightlift, like you're doing a deadlift. You want a deadlift with perfect form.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's the whole thing, right? So like if I'm deadlifting 100 pounds, I'll lift it exactly the same as I would 200 pounds or whatever. And you know what I mean? It's the same form. It's the same technique, ideally. I mean, I'm sure you'd get lazier on a 100-pound lift or whatever. But you know what I'm saying is like ideally you want your form and technique to be the exact same, but you're lifting maybe 200 pounds more. And I think there's something in there. I haven't quite figured it out yet, but like.
It's in my opinion, it's about, like when you were talking about that, I thought about finding like the perfect technique and the perfect form is also about pressure. Like if you asked a guy who's like incredibly strong to lift 100 pounds and do it, they'd be like, their form would probably be off because they're so used to pulling on a much larger weight. They probably might be ahead of themselves on part of the movement or behind based on how quickly they're doing it versus how they would normally do it in the past. Like, I usually rep at like 300. You're like, what's 100? Like if you feel awkward doing it. The same thing goes for like if finding your true cadence and your true form in the water. It's the same thing for cycling. Like you need to feel the appropriate amount of pressure to push the effort or the watts or the miles per hour or the heart rate that you want that feels right. Not that feels out of control, like you're spinning your wheels or you're spinning arms, because then you're going to go nowhere. You're just getting out of breath to do nothing. And again, that's why so many people, I think, get so discouraged and give up with swimming is they feel like they work so hard to go nowhere. Right. And that's sometimes that's blatantly what you have to tell people is like, you're just working so hard to go nowhere, to do nothing, which is exactly why you get so frustrated and you give up and you're like, hey, I can't do this anymore.
I think that's probably why you like 25s and 50s. And that might explain, if people a lot of times ask me about that. And like what you just said right there, the person lifting 100 pounds might get lazy, but if you kind of like have to put it all together and really kind of go quote unquote fast, like you're saying, or in the water, however you're describing that now, then your form gets better because you're constant. You're like, hey, I have to kind of concentrate on this. So if you're building that up with short repetitions and then you're just sort of like, making it a part of who you are. And that's the way you swim now. I think there's something to it because if you get in the pool and you're, I'm just going to laze around and be slow and just warm up. And sometimes that's harder. And I think
it's impossible.
Like when you run up a hill or you're doing hard running, your form becomes better. When you're running faster, I think a lot of times your form gets better because you're engaging a lot more of your potential.
More focused, like you have to be, and you can feel it more, right?
Yeah.
And that's the same thing. Like that's why the endless pool is such a great tool to have for fine-tuning stroke mechanics in such a technical sport like swimming is. And I use this comparison a lot. It's like, all right, so let's say I'm out here and I'm like, all right, we're going to focus on your run form. Okay. Just go run 10 miles and perfect it. I can't do that because after about a quarter of a mile, you're like, well, was it working again? I'm just going to fall right back into what I was normally doing. You put them in the water, like do a 25. I can do a 25 and perfect it. Take a break, reset. What am I working on? Okay, I'm working on this. Do another 25. Do another 25. Do another 25. And then get it to where you can actually stop and repeat and actually make it part of what you do and who you are as a swimmer. It's a new behavior. It's a new stroke pattern. It's a new technique. It's new muscle memory. It's all new. It's not, all right, I'm going to get in the water today. I'm going to focus on being long and strong. I'm going to swim 2,000 yards straight. then don't tell me you're going to focus on being long and strong. You're going to focus on long and strong for about 200. And then from that point on, you're going to think about your to-do list, what you need at the grocery store, what you saw on Facebook. I wonder if so-and-so is getting faster than me. You're no longer going to think about stroke rate or form. You're going to forget about everything. You're going to try and solve the world's problems. You're going to come up with a new invention. You're like, I wonder if that's patented. I don't know if that's patented. Maybe I should try patenting it. And then you're going to go water and you're going to think, I can't patent that. That sucks. I'm hungry. I shouldn't go to the store. And I don't even really think I worked on being long and strong today. That's how most people. That's their summary of most people swim. Is like that's how things work. However, it's also, once you find the right stroke, it's nice to just do it for a long period of time too. Which is also why I think swimming is hard, because you have no matter what you choose, you have a breakup. From a 25, you have to stop. You stop your stroke. That's like, all right, you're in a great groove. Again, that's why I love being in this pool for stroke stuff. Like once you're in the groove, just leave it. Do it and do it and do it. Because as soon as you break the pattern, it's hard to pick up again. So like that's like me. All right, Mike, we finally got your run form ready. Do it for about 100 meters. I want you to stop and walk for a minute, and then do it again. Like, wait, I can't get around the rhythm. I can't get in my groove. What are you doing? So once you get it, it's nice to have, but it takes a long time to work your way up to that, which again, that's athlete's mentality. It's like, I don't want to go to it's just 25s to 50s take so long. I just want to get it done. Okay. Well, if you want to just get your swim done, then be okay and satisfied with how slow you are right now. Because if you don't work on getting better and taking that time, then you're just rushing through things. You're not working on getting better. You're just working on getting out of the pool, which is in turn going to keep you there longer because you're not going to be faster.
Exactly.
I'm just saying, like that's the math.
Yeah. You're going to, over the course of your lifetime, you're going to spend a lot more time in the water.
A lot more time. Or you're going to be faster and just get it done quicker.
Right. Yeah, spend a little time up front and get faster in those races. I mean, it'd be nice to cut.
Kind of like you guys put a lot of time into us up front of this podcast when I was struggling.
Yeah.
But
look,
thankfully,
here you are.
Swimming and Mike brought me back to life. Here I am. Because I can talk about swimming all day long. It's my thing.
Yeah. But
any other, things you want to quiz me on or pop on me or jab on me today, since
No,
I'm gonna be on my toes more. I can't,
I just want to announce. I have a couple announcements.
You have a couple of what?
Not really
Announcements. I feel like we're in church.
The one thing is we just
Bob, do you have any announcements to make? Yep, I do.
Yeah.
Small group is actually going to meet Wednesday at 7, and we're still on for the potluck on Sunday.
We're meeting in the
we're meeting in the auditorium at 5,
annex.
and we already have enough people bringing fried chicken for the potluck. So if you could bring any lima beans or casserole, that would be great. Thanks, Bill.
So where was I?
Announcements. What are your announcements?
Yeah, we have new hats and visors in.
That's all you, baby.
They
have new hats and visors. They look awesome.
They're awesome. Couple of the old staples, and we got a couple new looks. And they are available at C26Triathlon.com. If you go to the store section, you should be able to find them. They're all here. They're all shipping, the day or next day that you order them. So
where's the store?
That's a bonus. The store?
The store. Where's the store?
Where's the store? You mean it's at C26Triathlon.com.
Okay. Our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. That's right.
And the club program is still out there. We'll set up your training plan for the whole year. Kind of keep an eye on you, communicate with a little bit, open up a lot of athlete type benefits.
Everyone likes benefits, baby.
Oh, free stuff? No.
No.
Check that out. It's a great program for $349, and we'll guide you all through the year around your races and vacations and whatnot. And also, I have been taking on athletes for custom coaching. So hit me up at crushingiron@gmail.com. And also, if you're in the club and you've missed my note, if you'd like to take that option, we will credit your club purchase towards the coaching program.
Look at you with the announcements today.
That's all I have. Back to you, Bob.
Back to you. Thanks, Bill. Bill, great to see you again today. You tell your wife, Janice, said hi. That's it. That's all we got for today. Again, appreciate you all listening, and I apologize for the first 10 minutes. It took me a while to get into my groove today.
And that's what people check in for.
That is not what people check in for. People check in for, people fast forward. Hopefully, hopefully, if they fast forward to that like they usually do because they think we're talking about sports. And you know what? Don't go back and listen to it. The first 10 minutes were great. You didn't miss anything. I rallied. That's all you need to know. But hey, no day's perfect, but it's all about how you end. It's not about how you finish. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, Mike, his email is at crushingiron@gmail.com. If you have any questions, comments, concerns for me, or any interest in coaching or coming into the hub, reach out to me as well. I'm at C26coach@gmail.com. And you can always stop by, again, our one-stop shop, which is our website, C26triathlon.com. We have all the info in the hub there. We have a few testimonials from athletes that have been coming in, and we love to see more people, especially this year.
Yeah, it's really going awesome. So yeah, check that out. Should we end these things talking about sports, or should we just get out?
Any other day, I'd probably say let's keep on going, but I feel like I'm going to crash and burn in a minute.
No, I agree. I'm going to go take a nap or something.
Yeah, I think I'm going to get in the pool.
Are you?
I think so.
No way.
He said no. He said no way. That's the kind of support we have here for one another. He's going to take a nap, and I just said I'm in the swimming. He's like, no way, dude, I'm out.
No, I believe
we'll see. You don't
sort
believe
of.
me. You don't believe me at all. We'll see.
No, I do believe you.
We'll update you. If I swim, maybe I'll do a technical video of talking about what I preached today on the podcast.
Yeah, who's going to shoot that?
And not you, you're going to be napping.
Not me.
I'll ask Chris. All right. See you guys.
All right. See you.